Welcome to this episode with the beautiful Amanda McKoy Flanagan, author of All In. And I'm so excited to talk to you today about your story, your journey, how you've gone from living more asleep in your default patterning to waking up and really creating a life on purpose. I am so happy that you're here. Thank you for making time.
Thank you so much for asking me to be on your show. I am grateful and honored.
Yes, we were talking a little before the recording here about the book, and I'll show you this one here, All In, Safe to Love and Let Go. I'm about halfway, and your story is incredible. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the way that you speak about the pain that you were in and
Mhm.
how you've really used each one of those invitation points to make change for yourself, not staying in the victim mindset or in your, belief that everybody leaves, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about, for people who haven't read the book yet, if you don't want to give any spoilers, tell us a little bit about
Okay.
the journey that I've gotten to read a little bit about.
So, yeah, so I guess I mean, it started probably when I was born, but
Yeah.
the awakening part happened after my brother died. My brother overdosed 5 years ago, and I say all the time, I didn't do this work because I'm this great spiritual, brave human being.
Yeah.
My story is I didn't really have a choice. I was kind of forced into the work,
Hmm.
because after my brother died, I grieved for probably a good, like, hardcore grieving for like 3 months, like not being able to get out of bed. Only thing I could do was take a bath. I'm in recovery. I would go to meetings, take a bath, and lay in my bed and cry. And then
Yeah.
finally, it was like the summertime. It was like June, and I was like, "It's my favorite time of year." I'm like, I'm good. I'm good." I've done all this work in recovery. I'm 12 years sober. Like, I know myself. Like, okay, I'm devastated that he's gone, but I'm going to be fine. I did all the things. I
Yeah.
went to grief share. I started the support, and all that kind of stuff. I hadn't entered therapy. I had called a therapist, a new therapist, like a few weeks before he died, which was kind of ironic, because then I was like, oh, and she was a grief therapist too. She was also a couples counselor, and I was going for myself, but I thought maybe me and my husband needed some counseling, so that was in the back of my head. And then Jeremy died, and I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, well, I also do grief, and I was like, oh, okay. So I started
Right.
with her. Yeah, it was like this perfect coming together.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so about 3 months after he dies, I get up, I kind of dust myself off, and I just get back involved with recovery. I get back involved with some community work that I do. And I went to a concert. I went to see Pearl Jam, which was mine and my brother's favorite, band forever. And his name was Jeremy. So, if you guys know the Pearl Jam song Jeremy. So
Uh-huh.
and I uh I met somebody there, and
Mhm.
we had this like spiritual connection, and it was this feeling that I never had like felt before. So I come home and I tell my husband, I don't love you. I don't think I ever loved you. And he was like, "What? Like, what are you saying?" And I told him, what happened. I just, nothing happened with that. But it was just like this feeling, this connection of like almost like a past life, like a weird thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was just this very strange feeling. And but I believed it. So I came home, and he was like, "Well, your brother just died 5 months before. Like, maybe your grief was playing a part." So we go to marriage counseling, and my therapist starts to unravel this whole story of generational family dysfunction that I had no idea that I was like uh, living with asleep, right? When you use your whole thing is going from asleep to awake. I mean, that's exactly what it was. I was
Yeah.
living this lie, this false narrative that life is painful, love specifically is painful. Happiness isn't real, joy isn't real, and that everybody leaves me and everybody's going to hurt me. So always
Yeah.
protect your heart and never go all in, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, I was literally told by a family member, it's always better to love a little less. So that compounded by a bunch of trauma I had throughout my life. I had a couple of sexual traumas as a child. My father cheated on my mother with her best friend when I was 16 years old. My mother got diagnosed with breast cancer at the same time. My grandmother had just passed away 4 years before that. We really didn't know how to grapple with any of that pain, and it just got stuffed down. My
Yeah.
addiction came up,
Yep. Yep.
and I was off to the races, and I would just stuff the feelings. But being sober for 12 years, I thought I had dealt with them. I was in and out of therapy, all that. So when this occurred, it really just knocked me right off course. I was like, what is this? So, the
Yeah.
story that I had been telling myself, like I said, I call it the great myth.
Yeah.
And I think the great myth is what a lot of us are living with,
Mhm.
living this lie that we have to suffer.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's generational. I think that it was passed down through the centuries, basically to protect one another. And I think it served a purpose. Like my whole deal is I don't blame anybody. I don't blame my parents. I'm not the victim. They're not victim. It's just how it was, basically, is how I
Yeah.
look at it, right?
Yes.
Like they just didn't know any different.
Right. And that's such an empowering place to be in. When you can
Hmm.
look at your past and your history almost objectively, where you're like, okay, yes, this happened. And it wasn't their intention maybe to treat me this way or to pass these things down, but they did. And so now it's
Yes.
my responsibility to reconsider or to challenge the great myth, challenge the beliefs.
Exactly. And I can't hold resentment against people, I believe, for just ignorance, which ignorance, just the definition is without knowledge, just without knowing any different. I say all the time, the only difference between me, my mother, my grandmother, and the generations back is that I was born in 1980. That's it.
Right.
I'm alive. We're alive right now during this evolution of consciousness that
Yeah.
is going on, where we're waking up, right? It was therapy, healing. It was not encouraged. It was
Yeah.
actually probably the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like it had that
Yeah.
easy
Shove it
stigma.
away.
Yeah. And if you do go to seek help, like you're weak, you
Yep.
can't deal with life, just deal with it,
Yeah.
no, like
Yeah.
we're not like I think we're seeing the results of that,
Mhm.
coming out with all the drug abuse, the suicides, the addiction, the shopping, the game. I mean, in all
Yeah.
these ways that our society is sick,
Yeah.
it's the result of these
Yes.
messages that were passed down.
Yeah.
And now we're finally at a point where we are encouraged to break them, and we have communities of people who want to break the cycle,
Yes.
right?
Strong, courageous people who are like, I can't continue
I can't.
living this way. Yeah.
I can't. And I knew for me, I might drink again.
Yeah.
If I live with this knowing that there's this pain and I just don't do anything about it,
Mhm.
I will 100% drink again. And for me to drink is to die. So, it
Yes.
doesn't have to get that severe for other people. You don't have to be facing those kinds of consequences. But it was this pull to be free.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that I wasn't free
Yes.
until I knew. I also say you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
I
Until you're
couldn't do
ready to
this
see
work.
it.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
The students ready, teacher appears, that whole thing.
Yep.
I had to peel some other layers first. I had to
Yeah.
do some other healing first. I think this kind of work is not for, and you work with women, but I think it's for people who have probably been searching for a while and have done some kind of work on themselves already. And
Yeah.
then this thing just appears, this feeling, this knowing, this pull to change, and
Yeah.
they don't know why they're stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious too, because you mentioned being in therapy, but
Hmm.
when you were kind of slapped in the face with all of this reality about your childhood and the generational trauma,
Hmm.
like that wasn't something that you had seen in therapy. And that is something so common with the people that I work with who find me, who they're like, I've been in therapy for like 10 years and I
Hmm.
should have this figured out. Like I should be able to change X, Y, and Z. I understand it. I know why it's happening, and I
Hmm.
can't shift the behavior.
Hmm.
So that kind of frustration with being in therapy and either not knowing where to go from there or
Hmm.
not having uncovered the real root of like the issue.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your experience in therapy and the surprise on the other end.
Yeah. So I started therapy. Well, the first week I stopped drinking, I also started therapy, but I wasn't in love with the therapist and I kind of stopped. Then I got engaged. And obviously, I mean, it wasn't rocket science. I mean, my parents were, their relationship was not healthy, and I didn't want to carry that over into my marriage. So I started to go to therapy. And she said to me, this is back in 2009. She said to me, this had to do with friendships. We were talking about friendships. I kept saying I want to make some new girlfriend friendships and stuff like that. And she was like, okay, so tell me about the people that you've been pursuing, basically. And as I was telling her, yeah, well, this one, and but she's not calling me back. And this one, I don't know, I see her sometimes, but she feels a little closed off. And she goes, you're chasing emotionally unavailable people. And I was like, what? I didn't, it was the first time that was ever brought into my stratosphere,
Yeah.
and she says, you're uncomfortable with emotional intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I say in my book, I was more comfortable like at a coffee shop or, doing something around in public around other people than I was more comfortable there than in somebody's like home.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to be vulnerable and to really meet people just being me, just being me. I always had this like facade, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
always had this like, I'm whatever you want me to be so that you like me, like that whole thing. So when she brought to my attention that I had an issue with emotional intimacy, like I said, it was around friendships at the time. I was also in there doing work around my relationship with my father. So
Mm.
that, she kind of touched on it. And then I stopped going. We got married. I went back a little bit when I was pregnant and then we stopped. So she planted the seed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't then until 2018, until 9 years later, when, like you said, I just got like smacked in the face with this like awareness,
Yeah.
that like I just had been functioning from fear of loss, really, is what it all came down to for me. My husband is 12 years older than me. He is chronically ill from 9/11. He has respiratory illness. He's sick right now or kind of trying to fend something off right now. He's learned
Mm.
how to handle it. He's not like sickly. He's not like just like a
Yeah.
sick guy all the time, but when he gets a cold, it can go right to pneumonia in like 24 hours. So anyway, I didn't know it. It was totally unconscious. It was totally unconscious, but I was pushing him away after my brother died. That's what this comes down to. Jeremy
Yeah.
died. In my brain, I said, Jim is next, and I'm just
Mhm.
going to grieve him now.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to feel this way again,
Yeah.
ever. And so I pushed him away unknowingly. And then back in therapy again in 2018, that's when it all came up again. This whole
Mhm.
emotional intimacy thing, this whole, fear of him. He also has PTSD, which he's done hypnotherapy on, which is really cool. It's called rapid resolution therapy. It was like 3 sessions, and he's like a changed man. His energy is just so different. But the PTSD, was very difficult and challenging for us as well. But what was interesting is I, I don't know if you got to the point in the book when I talk about imago theory. Do
Yeah.
you know? You
I do.
probably know
Yeah.
what imago is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sensed somewhere when we met that his PTSD or whoever, I mean, it wasn't even like a thing when we met. Like he didn't even address his PTSD until years later. He would deny it. But I sensed somewhere that he was uncomfortable being all in with me and vulnerable and
Yep.
emotionally intimate. I could sense that somewhere in our human mystery that we are, right? This is
All
our
our spidey
brain.
senses.
Yeah, the brain and the heart and the intuition and all that.
Yeah.
But like it was,
Yeah.
I didn't know it, right? It was just
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So that made me feel comfortable that he wouldn't push me into that place because I was also afraid of emotional intimacy, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, but we don't know this because I'm a year sober and I'm sponsoring women and I'm rocking it and I'm like on top of the world and I have like newcomer fire, like they call it. And he's 11 years sober and he's doing great. And we think we're like great. Meanwhile, we were very sick
Yeah.
still because he hadn't addressed really anything. And I really didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. So then later, when we're in therapy, when this all blows up, she brings that whole time back, like when we met and why we were attracted to each other. And, it's for the healing. We know this, in the work that you do.
Yeah.
We're brought into partnership to show each other what needs to heal.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, and my book is not about saving marriages. I want to put that right out there. I'm not like, everybody got to stay married, no, that just happens to be my story. Some marriages are not meant to be saved. Like they're not. Um, it takes two to tango. It takes two
Yeah.
people to be willing to do this work.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were one of the lucky ones, I guess, that we were both used to doing the work because we had already been in it. And we were like, all right, we're just going to take it further. We're just going to jump into like the deep end of this pool and just do it.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
just had these crazy awakenings along the way. So yeah, it was really painful, but it's worth it. I would
Yeah.
do it all over again, which sounds crazy, but like I just have, our pain, I talk a lot about turning pain into purpose,
Hmm.
not wasting the pain, all that kind of stuff. So we used it. We still do because, it's healing is a never ending journey.
Never ending. Yeah. And that experience of like attracting somebody who is familiar, who's comfortable, that unconscious driver of like, ooh, I don't like intimacy. I can sense that he doesn't like intimacy, so he's not going to push me, so he feels safe.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst some of the clients that I work with will verbally say like, I need an emotionally available partner, yet
Mm-hmm.
they aren't emotionally available. and
Exactly.
and it's like, first we kind of project that onto the person that we're with,
Mm-hmm.
and they very well may not be emotionally available, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
not to say that
Yeah.
anybody's at fault or not here, but
Yeah.
the blame that we tend to put on the other person of like, oh, I keep attracting emotionally unavailable guys, oh,
Mm-hmm.
these guys, and it's like,
Yeah. Take
yeah.
a look at you. You have to
And
take a look at you.
why are they attractive, right? Because when you do the work to heal,
Mm-hmm.
those types of people aren't attractive anymore. The game players, or the cheaters, or the people who keep you kind of at an arm's distance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you heal your own emotional availability, your own confidence, your own sense of self, it's like, I don't have fucking time for that.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't,
Exactly.
I'm not on that vibration
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You are vibrating at a different level, right? Now you're healthier. You have boundaries. You have self-worth. You have, your a certain comfortability in your own skin, and you're
Yeah.
unwilling.
Yeah.
You come to this place. This work has brought me where it really was brought me to this unconditional self-love and this unconditional trust in myself. That's why the book is called Trust Yourself to Be All In. It's not necessarily all in with others. It's
Yes.
all in with you. It's
Yeah.
all in with your emotions. It's all in with your knowing and your trust that no matter what pain comes down the pike, yeah, you
Mhm.
might end up on the floor for a couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
you're going to use your resources. You're going to find the right people. You're going to get back up, and
Yeah.
it's going to make you better, stronger, wiser, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing process, but again, it's like you don't realize what's waiting for you on the other side. But once you get there, then you have very little patience
Yeah.
for people. You just yeah, the spidey sense, like you could see it from a mile away
Yeah.
once you're awake.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Can't unsee it. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Totally.
the um the fear that some of my clients have of like, oh, I don't want to get sucked into another unhealthy relationship again. Right? It's like, if you are doing the real depth, the real dive down into the root of this stuff, and you start to heal the root of it, those you can't allow yourself to go back into those situations, like
Yeah, you
what
just
you
don't
know
want
now.
to. You're not
Yeah.
drawn to it. It's
Yes.
just not kind of like not a thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like if you find yourself back in those similar relationships, then there's more work to do.
Yeah.
Like great
Yeah.
that you've started this, right? Everybody's got to start somewhere. I give
Hmm.
everybody out there who this might be your story, a ton of kudos for like just even being willing to do this kind
Yeah.
of work. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Um, but there's more. There's more. And
Hmm.
there's more for me too. Like I still get thrown into loss, a fear of loss when my husband gets sick, but now I have tools today that I come out more quickly. I don't
Yes.
self-sabotage. I don't
Yeah.
turn it back on me and then try to hurt myself because I'm
Hmm.
in fear and I don't know what that is and I don't know what's going on. But all I know to get out of this pain is to do
Hmm.
something that's not going to make me think about it. And typically that's some way hurting myself in some way, whether it's just saying
Yeah.
something that's like going to get me in trouble with somebody or start a fight with somebody or create some chaos so that I don't have to feel right.
Yeah.
That's typically
Yep.
being sober now. It's not like hurting myself with drugs and alcohol or anything like that. It's
Yes.
like in relationships, I can like create
Uh-huh.
havoc. I can create like a mountain out of a molehill in like 3
Yes.
minutes when I'm in that place.
Yeah, because the chaos is familiar, right?
Yes.
We whether you have had an addiction that's more of a I want to say a like society accepted type of addiction, like alcohol, drugs, sex, like the big
Big
addictions, you know.
ones. Yeah.
We're all on the addiction spectrum,
We all
and
have it. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of us are addicted to that chaos. We're
Hmm.
addicted to the emotional highs and the emotional lows because it's familiar to childhood.
Yep.
And whether we're conscious of that or not, it's like our subconscious knows that that's the safe place, quote unquote.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we recreate it because we're like,
Totally.
I know how to be in this tornado. Like
Yep.
I know how to do this. And I used to work in the addiction field,
Oh, okay.
and I knew so many people who were sober. And there was a very clear delineation I was able to make once I like started talking to more people who were sober. And it's like some people are sober from drugs and alcohol or sex, but not everybody's in recovery.
Hmm.
And recovery to me means like they are working on the emotional part. They're emotionally sober, not seeking out the chaos, not seeking out the drama, not lying and manipulating. Like they're living by their program or the healthier standards.
Hmm.
It's like you
Yeah.
can be a dry drunk, right? And
Totally.
still be causing havoc in your life. And
Yeah.
the parallel that I see in the women that I work with is this addiction to potential, like men's
Mm.
potential.
Hmm.
Because similar to the drug, when you see a little bit of hope of that guy, he sends you the message, or he
Hmm.
says he wants to hang out this weekend, or he comes back after you've broken up and is like, I've changed this time, I promise. It's like a fucking drug.
It is. It's probably dopamine or some other
Yeah.
addictive chemical in our brains. It's the light bulb going off saying, this guy is gonna fill that void.
Yes.
This guy is gonna
Yeah.
finally make me feel the things that I didn't get in childhood.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're going to see me. They're going to hear me. Finally, I'm going to get the attention. I'm going to get the love. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be abandoned. But then, like you said, if people aren't really healed,
Yeah.
they're just going to recreate it anyway because that's what's familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious with you, before gym, like
Mhm.
in your years of using pretty heavily, what did the pattern of relationships look like then?
So I didn't have a lot of boyfriends. I guess they just were probably all scared of me. We were like, this one's a loose cannon, and yeah, we don't want anything to do with her. Um, but the ones that you know obviously were just as sick as me, right? Because we were brought
Yeah.
together. The main one, I was in a relationship for 4 years before I got sober. I ended that about 6 or 7 months before I got sober, and that ending that relationship, I think, was like my first inkling of like I deserve to self-worth. I deserve
Mm.
to feel better. Like this feels so bad to me and I don't want to feel this way anymore. It was like my first, I guess, moment of clarity, like we call it in recovery.
Yeah.
Before even having that aha moment of like, I'm not drinking anymore. But um, so yeah, that was a very tumultuous relationship. And towards the end of it, it was very people pleasing. It was very much like I hustled and tried to prove myself to this person, A, that I wasn't an alcoholic, and B, that I wasn't everything else that goes along with that, promiscuous behavior, and, just all the stuff, selfish. And no, that's not me. That's not what I am, trying to prove that, because if he believed that I was a good person, then maybe I could believe that I was a good person.
Yep.
Um, so, it started out almost again like the same thing with Jim and I, like I talk about in the book, the damsel in distress and the savior. This guy was same thing. He was also the savior, just like in my marriage when Jim and I met. I had a boyfriend in recovery, right? He died right before I met Jim. And I
Hmm.
was grieving then, but I didn't really wasn't. I didn't really grieve that. That's why everything kind of came up when Jeremy died. But it was the same exact situation, the damsel in distress and the savior. This guy came in. I was I think I was a senior in college, and or maybe a junior. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We were together for 4 years, and it started out just like he was this great guy. Oh my gosh, he's so great. He's gonna be so good for you. He's gonna calm you down. He's gonna, you're gonna stop being so out of control, stuff like
Oh,
that. Meanwhile, no, like that didn't work at all. I mean, there was a short amount of time that he would feed me, we would smoke a lot of pot and he'd feed me Xanax and I would just pass out. But I always managed being an alcoholic, I always managed to at least once or twice a week, get drunk. And then it started to get really bad. We graduated from college. We moved, we lived in Long Island and Long Beach for a while, but he hated it because he was from Brooklyn. So we moved to Brooklyn. And that's when things got really bad. We were like the party apartment. Everybody would come over on Friday. We'd be up all night, all that kind of stuff. And there were a lot of drugs in the scene and stuff. And I'm thinking, that also aided in the violent stuff that went on. Like we both would just had this like angst inside, and it never crossed the line of real like hitting or anything like that. But there was some pushing, there was some shoving. There was, one night he like dragged me across the floor by my hair, but with a whole bunch of people there. And they were like, "What are you doing?" And it was just like this, like, I had like flung like a rubber band. I did one of those things where I was mad at him. So I took the rubber band, put it on my finger and then like
Yeah.
shot it. And I got him like right here. And I was so proud of myself.
Oh.
And that set him off. And he came
Yeah.
over and that's when the hair thing happened. But so that was happening for a few months before I broke up with him. It was like, listen, I can treat myself like crap, but I'm not going to let you treat me like crap. My dad was not an abuser. My parents were not physical. That was not something that I was comfortable with. That was not something that I grew up with. We had dysfunction in other ways, but that was a no. Like, you're not
Yeah.
going to cross that line. So we
Yeah.
broke up, and then I got sober like 6 months later.
Okay. Okay. Well, kudos to you for being able to see that dysfunction, like, and not make the justifications that a lot of women find themselves in of, oh, he didn't mean it, or he
Mm-hmm.
really loves me, like he was just drunk again and
Mm-hmm.
again, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
that is so common for us to want to believe that he's not really that way, or that our reality is not really
Yeah.
what it is.
Yes, that was his suffering. That was his pain coming out. I think his truth is, I think we're all love and light when we're born, and the life just kind of does its thing to us. So,
Yeah.
and very, very the habitual, breaking up every 3 or 4 months or 5 months. Things would be really, really bad, and then they'd be really, really good, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
you see that a lot with the people you work with. It's
Yep.
really, really good, but then it gets so bad, right? And then we're gonna break up, and then a day later, we can't handle the emotional abandonment.
Yeah.
So we come back together and we promise it's never going to happen again and I'm going to change and da da da, yeah.
Mhm.
And then it just happens again and again and again. So that happened, I mean, literally from 3 months into a 4-year
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
That's when it started. I was on that hamster wheel for pretty much 4 years straight. Couldn't get off of
Which, yeah, which is so many women's stories.
it.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
years and years and years of hoping, right? Of pretending that it's going to work out, pretending that's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
That adrenaline cycle, or the dopamine cycle of like, oh, it's working, and then oh fuck, it's not.
Yep.
And it's,
Yep.
yeah, we're staying on
Yeah.
the same roller coaster as childhood.
Yeah. And my brain was telling me if I could just change, if
Yeah.
I could just be better, then
Yeah.
I wouldn't be causing all these fights. I wouldn't be
Yes.
but right? Like I
Yes.
totally self-abandoning, totally
Yeah.
blaming myself,
Yeah.
totally, it's all me. It's not him.
Yeah.
He's a saint, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
had the same
very.
exact experience in my relationship. It was like, how many more self-help books can I read? Or I'll just do
Mm.
therapy more intensely. I'll do it for both of us. And then I'll come and share with you what I learned.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will fix it. This is my fault. And
Yep.
I was being gaslit too, to believe that it was my fault, like
Mhm.
literally
Oh,
saying
yeah.
that,
Yes,
which
yes.
doesn't help the
Yep,
belief.
yep.
Um, which
Yeah.
unfortunately is the one of the insidious pieces of gaslighting, where it's just like so hard to build yourself back up from something like
Mhm.
that.
Totally, totally. Like their bad behavior then turns into where this, and that, and then we believe
Yeah.
those terrible things that they say. And then for me, I just spent my whole time trying to prove that that wasn't true, that he was
Mhm.
wrong. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't talk about that a lot. Like I haven't done a show on that, or I don't, I have my own podcast. I don't talk a whole lot about that relationship. So thank you for bringing that up
Yeah.
and reminding me and showing me like
Mm.
who I truly was and how I was thinking. Like it's really good to keep it green. It's really good to remember these things and to say, yeah,
Mhm.
that and to see the growth of like what's possible. Like, I know you like talking about hope and bringing hope to people like that.
Yeah.
You, me, there's many, many, many women out there and men who have done this work
Mhm.
and are free.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We talk about like the journey's never done. The self-work
No,
journey is never done, but like, yeah, how often do we stop and look at like, who was I last year or 2 years ago or
on a
5 years ago?
spectrum, right? I like to look at it like I'm on a
Yep.
spectrum. Never
Yep.
ends.
Yeah, because that is where it becomes very apparent, like how much, yes, you may be like removing layer by layer, but eventually that shows in your actions and the people you bring into your life and the relationships that you have. Like, don't discount all of
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
work.
one day you just look back and and you see that work
Yeah.
that's done and you're like, wow, that's who I used to be and that's not who I am anymore. And then
Yeah.
seeing that for me then motivates me to keep going because it's like,
Right.
well, if I've had that shift, if I was able to change in that way, if I was able to do this and that, then I know that more is possible for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you decided to leave that relationship and then you said 6 months later you got sober,
Mhm.
was that like a beginning to stop the self-abandonment? Was that your moment of clarity around like, what am I doing in this
Yes.
experience? Tell us a
I
little bit
think so.
about that.
I think so. I think my awareness came around when I was able to admit to myself, I don't like him. I don't like you. I
Mm.
like wouldn't choose to like be friends with you. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm in this relationship with you. Like, and your family and like just, entrenchment, and it was just this awareness, I think that and then also like I said, the like I was afraid that he was gonna like hit me someday. So I don't know. It was probably like a divine intervention, just like getting sober.
Mhm.
Because I had tried to end it for so long and
Yeah.
something else just came in, I feel like, and I was open to it, right? I feel like you have to have two, that's be like the perfect timing for things like that. Like I have to
Yeah.
be in a space where I'm open to it, my humanity, my spirit, everything is kind of coming together that when this gift arrives of this way out, that I
Yeah.
take it, that I take the escape route when it's offered to me.
Yeah.
So yes, and then so that was, I guess, October, November. We lived together for about a month, which was terrible. That was like torture, having to live with your ex, that with all this knowing out there. It's like now it's just out there, like we've admitted it. Like that's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
And then I got sober in July, so it was a little bit more than 6 months. But yeah, and then so it was like definitely, it was 100% the first time that I felt a shred of self-worth and I deserve a better life. And
Mhm.
then I get sober. And then with each other thing that I stopped smoking. And then I went back to school, started, following a passion, social work, like just being more and more true to myself and wanting to be healthier and healthier.
Yeah.
Started running, like making these other little changes that were like big changes. Yeah, just kept showing me they were all motivated by this desire to just be healthier. And I
Yeah.
think it all started with that choice to break up with that guy.
Yeah, and when you remove things that are preoccupying your attention and your energy, like him or the addiction, it's like you have so much more capacity to then explore who you actually are and start
Hmm.
doing more things in alignment with your values and your beliefs and what lights you up. And that helps get the momentum going in the direction of like, yeah, I like myself, I value
Hmm.
myself, I
Hmm.
respect myself, but we're in these environments where we're self-numbing or we're getting that validation that we're not love is not safe and we have to keep people at a distance and they're going to leave, right? It's so much energy drain out of our being.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I can feel that today when, like I said, when I
Yeah.
get thrust back into like the fear or old thinking patterns or whatever, I can feel that exhaustion still.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't let it go today. I could say that. Like I'm
Mhm.
aware of it. I see it. I can see a thought or an action that I'm doing or having and I can like nip it in the bud quicker.
Yep.
But it definitely still is can drain if I allow it to just spiral. And that's totally up to me because today I have the tools. I know what to do. I know what to do.
Uh,
I just have to
yeah.
make that choice to love myself and to say, no, I don't, I'm not going to hurt myself in that way today. It really comes down to that whole self-sabotage versus self-love and
Mhm.
making that choice. I'm either moving towards one or towards the other.
Yeah, which takes a lot of accountability to be able to
Mm,
say like, I am self-sabotaging, I am responsible for the self-sabotage instead of blaming it on the other person or on the relationship or the addiction or whatever.
Yep.
And that puts so much power back in your choice. Because like you
Mhm.
said, then I get to choose if I'm self-sabotaging or if I'm moving towards self-love.
Mhm.
And that there's so much empowerment in having choice and clarity
Yes.
and awareness. And like, yeah, that's something that I fall into occasionally. And then I wake back up. And
Yes.
that period of time between falling asleep and waking up gets shorter and shorter.
Yep.
And that's how you know that you're also healing. Like, okay, I have
Yes.
the tool. I'm feeling this wave of fear. I know how to sit here. I know how to go for a run to help ground myself. I know how to sit in the discomfort.
Yes. Exactly. That's what this whole journey has been that ability to sit in whatever feeling comes up. That
Yes.
all in thing again, being all in,
Yeah.
being willing to greet, honor, embrace, feel, and move through whatever
Yeah.
feeling comes, whether that's a, negative feeling or positive feeling or whatever, just
Yeah.
to be open to all of it, because I know I don't always want to be on cloud nine. I don't always want to be this like, everything's great all the time, because for me, my growth has come through pain, and I'm not looking
Yeah.
to inflict like major pain on myself anymore. But if I get real with myself about who I am and what's going on, it's going to present a natural opportunity for growth is going to present when I get really, really honest with myself with where I'm at, that I'm a human being and I'm going to
Mhm.
have times of that when I'm going to need to go for the run. I'm going to need to do the grounding. I'm going to need an extra 15 minutes of meditation. I'm going to need whatever I'm going to need.
Yeah.
And then having that self-worth as a foundation that might waver here and there, but it's never fully gone,
Yeah.
then forces me, pushes me, guides me towards the willingness to do those things that are going to get me back in a good place. But I have to have patience, and I have to have self-compassion. And I have a whole chapter on self-compassion because
Yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah. If we can get to the place where we can sit in discomfort, sit in our feelings, and we've categorized feelings as good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
sadness,
Yeah.
anger, frustration are bad. Happiness and joy are good. And we always want the good. And it's like, this is not real. So if we can understand that life is cyclical and this too shall pass, whether it's the lighter emotion or the heavier emotion,
Yep.
it's like, how do we greet whatever is present? And
Mm-hmm.
how do we stop trying to run away from
Mm-hmm.
that? I use spirit oracle cards all the
Uh-huh.
time with
Uh-huh.
clients and with myself. And there's a line in one of the cards that's like to slow down because you're never gonna run fast enough anyway. Like
Uh-huh.
run away
Yep.
fast enough.
Never gonna outright say. I said in one of my podcast episodes, you're never gonna outrun your shadow.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
gonna be there. So you
Yeah.
may as well, I may as well, let's just speak in the I may as well
Yeah.
go into it
Yeah.
and embrace it and
Yeah.
send it love. Really, that's the antidote for me. When I'm
Yes.
trying to run away from these feelings, it's like, no, 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 it's okay. It's not gonna kill me. I'm not gonna
Uh-huh.
die.
Yeah.
Actually not looking at it probably will kill me, because for me
Yeah.
with addiction and I can't afford to not do that, to not look at
Yeah.
these things. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about just embracing it and saying that's just a part of me, right? You probably read that part already in the book about I think chapter 10, all of me. And it's like I'm this whole meadow
Yeah.
of weeds and beautiful flowers and prickly ones and velvety ones, and it's all of me, and none of it is, like you said, bad. We
Yeah.
look at these things as bad.
Yes.
They're all
Yeah.
parts that need healing.
Yep.
They need even more love. Instead of admonishing myself and saying, you're a terrible person for thinking this, you're a terrible person for feeling this,
Yeah.
that's going to just create resistance, right? And then
Mm.
resistance is what's going to keep me in the
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah. I always attribute it to like these parts of us being children who are wounded, right? Or parts of us that
Yes.
are wounded. And if you
Yes.
had a child, like a real child who is screaming at you in the corner because they're scared, you wouldn't like go lock them in a closet, right?
Exactly.
You would say, "Come here, sweetie, like tell me what's
Yeah.
going on." And you would
Yeah.
meet them with curiosity and comfort. And
Yes.
so if we can do that for ourselves of like, "Oh my God, I'm feeling so much fear," and stopping for a minute and be like, "Oh, this is my 5-year-old who's fucking terrified right now.
Yep.
What's up for you, sister? Like, what do you need?" And
Yes.
just giving her some airtime, like
Yeah.
reconnecting that relationship to each of our parts because they're not going to stop wanting to be seen. But
No.
the more that we can nurture them and love them, the less loud they get and the
Yes.
less enmeshed we are in that feeling.
I see that too. So I have two daughters,
Yeah.
and one of them is very emotional. My younger one is just seems to, they just have personality. She just seems to be a little bit more empathic and feeler and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And, when she wants my attention, she wants my attention, and she doesn't stop until she gets it. And then I
Yeah.
realized after a couple of years, okay, like just give her what she needs when she needs it. Stop
Yeah.
trying to be like, because she also has that like kind of willful like attitude that I was like afraid that if I give in too much, then it's like a power struggle. It's not. It's not. If you have a willful child, it's not about them trying to seek power. It's about them
Yeah.
trying to be heard and be seen and respected and have respect their dignity, all that kind of stuff. That's a whole other show. But she was the one that kind of taught me like, wow, if I give her what she needs and not try and change the way she feels, like, oh, stop crying, or oh, you're fine, or no. If I go in there with her and nurture her and love her, then she's fine. And it doesn't take a whole lot. It doesn't take
Right.
hours and hours of that, just like with us. Like my therapist had taught me about the classroom of little Amandas. And I
Hmm.
write about that in the book. It's all these different little Amandas.
Yeah.
And the one that was, always up in front, like pick me, pick me, pick me. That was the protector. That was the Amanda that felt that I had to put on that emotional armor
Hmm.
and I had to protect myself. And that one serves a purpose too, right? Like these parts of us that we don't love, they serve purposes at times,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
human. Like God gave us, or higher power, whatever you want to think, universe. We're born with all of this stuff to serve us in some way. It's how we use it
Mhm.
all.
Yeah. And her coping skill of being the protector was something that she adopted for a very real reason. Like at whatever age she came to be your protector, you needed a protector to because your adults in your life or whoever was not doing it. So she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm going to step in and this is the role that I now have. And you learn that you can maladaptively get that need met,
Yes.
even though you don't realize it's maladaptive until you start digging into some of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because that protector that I thought was like serving me really was keeping me away from wholehearted living and loving. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't have that protection going and
Hmm.
still be with you,
Yeah.
be present with you, be feeling with you, be empathic, be
Yeah.
nurturing, be compassionate, whatever, all that kind of stuff. I couldn't do that with that protection on. It
Yeah.
just impossible.
Hmm.
But she, like I said, she comes back sometimes, like in
Yeah.
the book, I say, I tell her to go sit in the back of the room. And next time I need you, I'll call you up to the front,
Yeah.
because I'm sure there will be a time
Yeah.
where the next big life event will rattle me, and I'll need that. It's a survival trait,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like you said, it helped me when I was young, but I don't need it anymore. Just like all this generational dysfunction helped our ancestors, helped them to survive. But now
Yeah.
we're living in 2023 and we don't need all of that. We just
Yes.
don't know how to get out of it because it's so embedded and ingrained in our cells,
Yes.
really,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
DNA.
So much compassion for like during this awareness work because
Yes.
it can be really easy to like get very overwhelmed with seeing and taking responsibility and taking accountability. And it's like, yeah, babe, you were doing the best that you could with what you had at that time. And
Yes.
now you can know differently and do better. And that attitude helps to propel you forward instead of sucking you back into what the victim, the woe is me,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there's so much wrong with me and like I'm never going to be able to fix this and I can't believe that I stayed in that relationship for 4 years and like that's
Mm-hmm.
not helpful. So to your
Mm-hmm.
purpose, how do we make use of that pain?
Mm-hmm.
How do we alchemize that into something
Mm-hmm.
that can open you into authentic connection, true relationships? Like, yeah, you have the power to use it.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. I think everything in life that presents is meant to be used for some kind of purpose.
Yeah.
So why not all the pain, right? And if I'm sitting here with the self-loathing and the self-judgment and all of that, it's not. I'm gonna just my defense mechanisms are gonna turn on because I don't want to feel
Yeah.
that. And if
Yeah.
I don't feel that, I can't feel what's on the other side of that, right? If you can't feel the pain and the grief and the loss and the regret or remorse or whatever it is that you don't
Yeah.
love about yourself, you're never going to be able to feel that other side. So you got to feel it all. You need all of it. And that was a real awakening to me when I learned about that.
Yeah.
That if I
Yeah.
don't feel everything over here, I can't feel everything over here.
Yep. Yeah. So tell us, when you have now been living in this more awake place, how have you seen the relationship with your husband change? How have you seen the relationship with your kids, your work? Like, what is possible when you do decide to, like, be like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I might be on the floor crying for 4 weeks and then be back in
Mhm.
another 2 weeks. And
Mhm.
how do you choose to keep going? Like, what's the benefit that you get?
I think by doing all this work, what has really solidified is that self-worth and that self-love, like I said before. And that kind of just, no matter how hard things get or painful things get, I have that reference of what, like I said, what's on the other side of that. And it just propels me. Like I have such a strong belief in myself, and that I'm here for a reason and that I have purpose. The whole process really gave me a lot of purpose, which now is to help other people heal.
Yeah.
Right? Like I that's why else? Why else do we go through this stuff? I think it's to help each other. And I think right now in society, we're all very much buckled, not all, a lot of people are buckled down in this like fear place of I need to protect myself. So I think I've been given this gift to now try and help other people heal. And that goes on in my family too, right? Like I am such a better mother, I think, because I'm like tuned in, I'm tapped in, and I'm not afraid of the hard conversations. Like I
Yeah.
have an 11-year-old who's in 6th grade, and it's, things, girls can be girls. And I remember what it was like when I was in middle school and high school, and a lot of it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
So I can help her through those things with a very like objective, like not getting so like sucked in. I don't get so emotionally attached to every single thing that's going on anymore. Right. And like in the beginning, we talked about like about this emotion. I don't know if were recording yet, but I think we talked about like emotional sobriety and emotional
Yeah.
maturity. And yes, you said you could be dry drunk. Yeah. So like
Mhm.
I can enter that space with my kids and help elevate them,
Yeah.
right? Like these kids today, like if they have people in their lives that are doing this kind of work,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And I think a lot of them are like light workers. I think they were born at this time to like really bring this stuff into fruition, because like it's starting with us. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if any other generation before us has really done this deep dive. I feel like the hippies were onto something, the hippies, they felt it. They were like, yeah,
Yeah.